All of the birds died in 1986 due to Reagan killing them and replacing them with spies that are now watching us. The birds work for the bourgeoisie, don't.
All right. Are you good?
You're down.
All right. So, on today's episode of Off the Rails, you actually, my dear special guest Lauren, you know what the topic is this time around.
Yeah, you gave me a one-line little
Yeah.
prep.
I gave you that one line, which our audience should have heard at the beginning. All the birds died in 1986 due to Reagan killing them and replacing them with spies who watch us now. The birds work for the bourgeoisie.
Actually, all you said was birds aren't real, and I said that. And I think
right,
it's
okay.
important to the distinction
It's important to clarify
that this is just playing in the back of my head 24/7, this TikTok audio.
So yeah, this audio, if people aren't familiar, there's the meme sort of movement, birds aren't real, that has sort of come up and gone viral in the last couple of years. And I mean, in reality sense, it's a total like meme. It's a joke. It's just, some guy who thought, wouldn't it be funny if we made like a satirical political like campaign, birds aren't real, like a conspiracy thing. But I don't want to talk about reality.
Okay.
I want to talk about how birds aren't real. All right. We're going to get into this conspiracy. All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, to start off, we're going to go through the history of the movement, how it came to be, okay? And I got to tell you, I got to break it to you, Lauren. The birds didn't die in 1986 due to Reagan killing them.
Damn it.
What actually happened is they've been swept, they've been killed over the course of 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Because, you can't kill them all at once.
No.
That'd
be
have
suspicious.
and you'd have to replace them immediately, and if there's any sort of gap in that time,
Yeah.
people would know.
Yeah.
There's millions of birds out there. People will notice a lack of pigeons or geese.
One production delay and everything's gone.
Oh, yeah. So, let me pop over my notes here. Basically, this all began not in 1986, but actually in the 40s, during the Cold War, shortly after the end of World War II. Mm-hmm. You're already making a face.
I'm sorry, I'm really excited, and I don't know any of this.
I
just know the TikTok. I don't know anything about birds aren't real.
You haven't heard any of my birds aren't real rants?
No, I haven't.
Oh, good. So you're fresh for this. I thought, man, we're going to do an episode and Lauren will already know. No. You're still new.
Cold War, they said birds.
So here's what's happened. And I will show you after this my little propaganda piece that I made, and I'll put it in here for our dear audience. So, back shortly after the war ended, as you know, the U.S. and Russia had really tense relationship. It was the Cold War. You know the Cold War.
Ice Cold War. Yes.
Ice cold. There was the there was the Red Scare. There was a lot of concern over communism and just a butting heads of like political ideologies. I don't need to go through all that. You know the Cold War. If you know, you know. So during this time, the CIA, of course, was engaging in all sorts of investigation and espionage work, trying to figure out, what were the Russians up to, or the Soviets, and what can we do to like outsmart them. So one of the things they wanted to do was try and catch potential communists, and they were trying to think of different ways, obviously to catch people who might have been abroad, who were maybe going to had malintent, were going to try to do something, invade America. But they were like, what do we do about the communists that may already be in this country? Mm-hmm. How are we going to suss them out? How are we going to find them and stop them? So they were like, we need a way to spy on our own citizens, to figure out who's a real American, who's a true patriot, who's a communist. So the CIA director at the time was Allen Dulles. I've never heard his name out loud, so Dulles. Mm-hmm. He, of course, wants to figure out a way to catch communists, but he also has a notorious hatred for birds. He calls them flying slugs, and he wanted to get rid of them. So he thought up a master plan, and now please pardon my pun, he's going to find a way to kill two birds with one stone. Wipe out birds, replace them with camera drones, and then use that. 1, birds are gone. 2, we can now spy on all of America and catch potential communists. 2 birds with one stone. Actually, more like 12 billion birds with not stones, but like a viral, like infectious gas. Your thoughts so far?
What? I don't want to say what a visionary because that implies good, but who goes from, wow, you know what, I don't like birds and we need to spy to, I have an idea. That's
the pipeline
the pipeline.
in Alan's mind. Yeah, I mean,
Alan said, I've connected the two dots.
I've connected the dots.
Them.
So, as I said, none of this happened in 1986. What happened was between 1959, which was like the start of the project, to about 1971, 12 billion birds were killed. And you're thinking, how? And don't worry, let me pull up a little quote for you. Do. So of course, yeah. Security was one of these big things Alan was focused on. He met with Eisenhower to like clear this plan. Put some eyes in the skies, and his concern was just like, hey, how are you gonna get rid of these birds? What's your plan for that? All right, so where my document is so long. All right, so 12 billion birds died between 1959 and 1971.
Wow.
So what they did, of course, your first question is, how do they fund such a project?
Mm-hmm.
They took $65 billion from public health, the public health department. Which, that in itself says a lot. We don't need this for public health. Let's use it for security.
Yeah.
$65 billion of public health money, and use that money to retrofit 120 B-52B bomber planes to drop bird poison with a fast-acting virus to kill the birds.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the next step in this whole hullabaloo is Area 51, which I'm sure you've been wondering this whole time. Madeline, how does Area 51 come into play? Great question.
It's always in the forefront of my mind.
So, Alan Dulles met with Boeing, the Boeing airline company, to make these bomber planes. And he knew if the government was to go undetected, in doing this, he needed to keep these aircrafts out of sight. So he was under strict orders not to, let anybody know what's happening. So that's why he devised a plan to construct the aircraft in Area 51. So just in case you were wondering how these planes were built, Area 51.
Okay.
He takes these people out to Area 51 to, assemble these bombers, okay? And they get the planes, they spread the gas, done and dusted. And that poison specifically was pretty interesting. Now, this document is just so... I'm not going to show you my secret document, but basically, it was forced extinction.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was, it was a gas that the virus would, a single drop of poison could strike the bird's feathers. The virus would take hold through the fibers and make its way into the bloodstream. The virus would then affect the bone structure in such a way that total decomposition of the birds would take place within 24 hours.
Oh my god.
Which is insane. Such a fast-acting virus.
Like, through the feathers and the skin.
Into the blood. I don't know what the chemical makeup of this bird poison was. Also, it should... The method for this, the water tanks in the bombers were filled with a specially formulated bird poison. Just bird poison. It's not elaborated on what that is. That once consumed would give the birds a virus to pass on to other birds. The poison was sprayed from an altitude of 8,000 feet and would completely dissolve before it hit the ground. That meant only birds would be affected by its terror. Now you're making a face.
I'm just thinking about logistics of this. Making sure it's only going to harm birds.
Yeah.
Also, do we have jurisdiction to kill birds in other countries? So is it if the bird crosses the border?
Yeah. No,
that's my logistical question.
That's a fair question. I really enjoy. Frankly, I looked it up. There is a border concern here. So a common question is, how do the birds not fly out of the United States and to Mexico or Canada? Great question. The majority of birds are programmed not to cross. The drones won't cross.
Okay.
Your concern was other countries.
How do we get the birds in the first place?
We're only dealing with birds that are already in American soil.
Okay. They're American citizens. We can do what we want with them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The program not to cross, there are some that still venture. The government will do anything they can to maintain control over its citizens. Any bird you see flying over borders to Mexico or U.S. is simply keeping track of a citizen who has gone abroad. There is nothing keeping the birds from Canada or Mexico traveling inside, which is why there will never be 100% robot bird population. It will probably hover around 95%, as birds are always, flying around. Just so that, that concern is taken care of.
Thank you.
But my question, it's not exactly something that I can really debate, because, of course, all the birds have already been killed off and are now drones. But my thought when I read about the virus was, of course, how'd that work? Because living in a pandemic, learning more about how viruses spread, just thinking, would you really want to have your birds die within 24 hours if you also need them to spread the virus?
Mm-hmm.
I've played a lot of Plague Inc. You ever heard of Plague Inc.?
No, I haven't.
It's a really great mobile game when you just are the virus and you try to spread and then kill everyone.
Ah.
I haven't played it recently.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things you do is one of the strategies is to, put in all these different infectious, traits of, spreading through the air, spreading through water droplets, all this stuff, but then not having any symptoms, because if you have symptoms, people will notice it, and then they'll try and, find a cure for it, or if you kill people off too quickly, you won't infect the whole population, and you'll burn yourself out. And that is a question I had reading about this virus. If it kills them totally within 24 hours, will they have time to spread it?
Yeah.
But I suppose also only 120 bomber planes.
Yeah, for the entire United States.
Yeah.
You gotta work in sections, but still.
Still, it's...
Get the bird carcass before people notice it, too.
This has already happened. The birds have already been killed. So we can't mess with history, but I do have questions about it. I will say, something I passed over, but I think is incredibly important, is the fact that the entire Vietnam War is a front. So, basically...
Yeah?
Basically... Well, let me tell you about the bird building process.
Okay.
All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. This
episode's
going to be a little messy, just because I'm so excited to share what I found. So they kill all these birds, all right? So now all the birds are dead, and I'm sure you're wondering, and what now? So, as the birds are dying, in 1963, JFK finds out about the bird program. Now, he is, as it stands so far, the only president up to now who has ever pushed back against this program. Every other president has been informed about it and has given it the green light. JFK is the only one. And he's also the only one to have been assassinated.
I was thinking that.
Hold on to that connection.
Okay. I picked it up out of the air, and
JFK has been assassinated.
Know, I'm holding
the only one.
The thread.
Yeah, listeners. Lauren is holding onto that thread. All right, JFK found out about the program when, on October 25th, 1963, he was shown a prototype turkey, a prototype drone turkey. He told the CIA to stop, and then a month later, November 22nd, 1963, he was assassinated. Suspicious?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much.
So, all right. Now, I mentioned it earlier, and I got a little ahead of myself. The Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Vietnam War is a complete front. It wasn't about politics or any of that. No. All it was for aluminum. We invaded Vietnam under the guise of assisting, the Vietnam citizens. But what it was we just needed to push into the country to mine aluminum, because they have vast amounts of different minerals and metals, and we needed them to assemble more birds.
Mm-hmm.
So the CIA needed mass amounts of this type of aluminum, and I'm going to try to pronounce it. It looks like bauxite, or Bauxite. Te, an ore with a high aluminum content, to build more robot bird frames. And the U.S. government used the brewing conflict in Vietnam as a front to capture territories that had large quantities of this metal, deploying troops under the guise of defeating communism.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if it was complete guise, because, you know, knowing the U.S. government, we're all about defeating communism, so again, much like the original plan, 2 birds with 1 stone. Get rid of communism, get rid of birds. Yeah, so, in order to build the billions of birds needed, the government, and this will lead us on a little tangent here, utilized the already underway project, the Community Fallout Shelter Program. Have you ever heard of this?
I have.
Yes.
You've told me a little bit about it.
I've told you about this because I think it's absolutely fascinating. So, our brief little tangent. In the 60s, JFK, and this is an outside of the bird conspiracy, real human thing that happened in U.S. history that I think is so fucking funny. In the 60s, during the height of the Cold War, everybody's really concerned about nuclear war. Very, very, and like a valid concern. It's terrifying. So JFK and like the Army Corps of Engineers and just the government in general is like, we need a way to, if the nuclear bomb should come falling down, we need fallout shelters. Has anyone ever heard of the game franchise Fallout? I'm getting Fallout vibes. So what they did was they genuinely did build some like actual bunkers and stuff, but they were like, this is going to take too long. We don't have the funding or money to do this across the country. What can we do? We can go and sort of survey a bunch of buildings and like label buildings across the country that fit the criteria of like, this could be a fallout shelter. Now, reading these documents kind of reminds me of like the duck and cover videos of like, you show a school child like, oh, if the bombs fall, duck under your desk and cover. Like, it's not really going to be effective. Like, not every building they surveyed can really survive a nuclear blast. It was more of just like here's a shelter place to make you feel better kind of a thing. But they did. Like, thousands of buildings across the country have, like, fallout shelter signs put on them. And some of them still stand today. There's a couple in, like, a town over from me in, like, Dover that have them. And in my research for this, I found out that Emmanuel College was designated as a fallout shelter way back in the day. I don't know what building was. I'm assuming maybe, like, admin or whatever. I think Simmons was also one. Boston City Hall was a fallout shelter. And actually, the Army Corps of Engineers also put in, like, 2 weeks worth of, like, water, like, barrels of water, and what they called civil defense crackers. I'm assuming these are not, like, Ritz crackers. They're probably more, like, hardtack or something like, I don't know, some sort of ration. But rumor has it that some of these, like, barrels of water and crackers may still be in the basement of City Hall as sort of like a museum type of deal. And I desperately want to get in and figure that out.
A little nibble.
I don't need a nibble, I just need to see.
Oh, okay.
I'm, like, there's a part of me that really loves seeing the fallout shelter signs on buildings and going, oh my god, I love that that's there. And another part of me that's like, steal it. Steal it for yourself. But I don't want to besmirch history. So, that was my little tangent. Back to the birds. So the government utilized this community fallout shelter program to turn them into drone assembly facilities. So if the nukes fall, oh well, we got birds. So during these times, thousands of birds were produced a day, with different bird bunkers building different birds for certain regions. So it was crucial that the public did not notice a change in their local flora and fauna. You know, we can't send cardinals out to Mississippi. I don't know that that's, like, where cardinals go, but, like, you know. Yeah. Can't have geese in Florida. I should stop naming bird types. I don't know enough. But, you know, we can't just start throwing out birds willy-nilly. We have to be careful about this. So, I mean, I'm sure your next thought is, how did they manage to get enough people to build birds without revealing the secret?
Yeah. Idiot.
What's your theory on how they did it?
Well, I can't say I have one right now. I wonder, I mean, I want to say just one guy then made them all, but that doesn't seem logical.
No, it was thousands of people. So, how did the government get thousands of people And where are they now? Why aren't they testifying in court? Why aren't they, why don't they remember? I'm reading these from the Bird website directly. Right, the source. To sum it up, they were tripping balls. And this is a quote. The government would send individuals to local nightclubs and bars who would then scope out a candidate who looked like they could assemble a robot bird and would tell the person they were having a costume party on acid. It was the 60s and 70s where acid was more accepted than a bottle of water. These people were then given work overalls, their costume, and a small tab of acid, which was actually just a piece of colored paper. The acid trip they were expected to be on was actually the bus ride to the entrance of the bunker, where they were given a toolbox and a pair of headphones that played Pink Floyd non-stop. This combination of assembling a robot bird inside a 5-story government fallout shelter led them to believe they were on the most insane acid trip of their life. So your thoughts on that?
That's what I feel like right now. I get it.
This is an acid trip for you?
A little bit. There are so many details to this. I keep forgetting that it's fake. I keep forgetting that you preface that this hasn't happened. And
none of this is real. Except for the fallout shelters.
But all of this feels like it could be real with the level of specificity
that's one of my favorite things about the entire Birds Aren't Real thing.
They just
is the level of meme is insane. And I like to fully believe that this is real. It isn't, but makes me happy.
I'm thinking about the creators, realizing they have a little plot hole, and, how do we fix it?
How do we fix it?
I know.
Many of these individuals would later be heard saying, "The craziest trip I had was back in '76 when I met this guy who gave me this crazy tab. From then on, all I remember is riding through the desert for 45 minutes on the top of a sawed-off school bus, then walking down a staircase into a huge warehouse that was underground, and having some guy tell me to follow some instructions and making some sort of flying robot bird." There you have it, folks.
There you have it. Birds aren't real, and if you have a parakeet, you're a liar.
Yeah. Pigeons are liars. Parakeets are fakes.
Mm-hmm.
The geese are the devil.
The geese are the devil.
So that's where that brings us up to, I guess, current times, in the sense that about every bird you see is a drone. Mm-hmm. And this movement is really about educating people, pushing back against government surveillance, and doing our part to just fight the man, fight the system.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's fake.
Okay.
Also, it's a conspiracy.
I'm gonna be looking outside and doing a double take.
So I'm now gonna show you a little thing I made for a motion design class having to do with the Birds Aren't Real movement, and I will insert it for our dear viewers.
Mm-hmm.
It is a video. You had to make an informative. The prompt for the class was make an infographic, make a narrative to inform somebody about a topic through animation and motion design. Mm-hmm. And most people in the class did things like, endangered animals, or beauty standards, and the dance industry, or influencer marketing. Very, very important topics. I decided to inform the public, to tell them the truth. Birds aren't real. Mm-hmm. And so I will present to you my little 2-minute campaign to you now. That song that you heard was called Rick Deckard Likes to Jog, and it was composed by me.
It's great.
Thank you. So, I mean, let's wrap it up here with your, what are your closing thoughts?
Birds are real, but should they be?
No, exactly.
I think it also shows just how gullible I am if someone puts effort into lying to me. I have a moment of, well, they're trying really hard, so maybe.
So maybe. One of my favorite things about the whole meme movement, and we'll wrap it up so you can go to class, was just the fact that, like, he started, like, a fake campaign and, like, had a van and, like, toured across the country, and there were news outlets that interviewed him, and he would just be in character, and so there's the thing of, like, I know it's fake, but we have to kind of take it seriously.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, are there people that think that he thinks that it's fake? I bet there are people that think that he's crazy.
Yeah. Like, who just didn't get the joke.
Who doesn't get that he's in on the joke? He made the joke.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure corrupting your mind.
I enjoyed it so
Birds
much.
aren't real. Fight the man.
Birds aren't real. Listen to the Shags.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Goodbye.